Well, it's fall break. Looks like we got some people missing this week, but man, worship was great this morning. Y'all give it up for worship team, and they spend a ton of time every single week preparing, and um, so thank you guys for all that you're doing, and if you want to be a part of that, you let us know. We can get you into our band. So last week we started a series. It's called FAM. As you see on the screen, it's Family Matters. So it's all talking about our family. And I introduced you to my family last week by pictures and different things, and the family that I grew up with and the home, and kind of told you some of the things about that so you can know a little bit about my background and where I came from and that type of thing. If you weren't here, I have two younger sisters. And it's always fun being around my sisters. Okay, they're very loud people. They're fun people, and so I kind of addressed that and talked about it a little bit. If you want to always go back, if you miss a message, we're trying to put all of them on our Southside Students YouTube page. If you ever miss one, you're welcome to go there and check them out. Okay, and right now we're just uploading the messages. Every single week, just for people who are not able to attend, or if you miss one and you want to check out what we're doing and stay right along with our series, you can always check it out. And that's just Southside Students. When you type it into YouTube, we pop up, okay? And so you can just subscribe to us and check it out. It's the same YouTube page that we were using over the quarantine for doing all our different things, and we're still going to continue using that page. But we upload these messages every single week. All right? Families. When we think about families, I think of TV shows, okay? What are some of the TV shows, like family TV shows, maybe that you've watched, that you're like, I love watching this family or this TV show because of the family that's involved in it? What are, yeah? Family Guy. Thanks. I knew that was coming. I asked. Don't know if I can approve Family Guy. As a matter of fact, I know I can't. All right? Yes. The Simpsons. All right? Yes. Big City Greens. Is that what you said? Okay. I hope y'all know what these are, some of them. Fuller House. All right. Back in my day, it was called Full House. Back in my day. The new series is Fuller. I do know that. But I watched Full House. All right? Full House. All right? Yeah. Jesse, all right, yes. Aaron, you got another one that's a little better than Family Guy? Maybe, is it any cleaner? Maybe, I don't know. All right, I'm seeing a theme right there. All right, Caleb, you got one back there? What? No. No. Huh? Bumps? Is that what you said? I like that. All right. And any others? All right, Booth. Good Luck Charlie. All right, so I hear some Disney stuff going out. Disney Plus has brought back a lot of the ones that we used to watch, and you can watch some of them. But I had a couple shows that I watched when I was your age. One of them being Family Matters, and Austin talked about that in his high school message a couple weeks ago. Family Matters. Have you ever seen Family Matters? I had a character on there called Steve Urkel. Anybody ever seen it? Okay, I got a few. All right, great. All right, so that's one of the shows. But the show I just want to talk to y'all or introduce to y'all today was called Home Improvement. Home Improvement. There it is. That was the show. It's a Tim Allen show. All right, Tim Allen, that's the comedian that's like up there sitting on top of the house with his back toward, his wife in the show. And he's also, if you don't know Tim Allen, he's also Santa Claus 1, 2, and 3. All right, and so that's Tim Allen. He's that guy, and so or Scott Calvin in Santa Claus. And so he had a show, and this was in the 90s. This show was all about his family and also about his job. He was a tool man, like he sold tools, and he did crazy like stuff with the tools and that type of stuff. But the interesting thing was his family and the dynamic of his family. So he had 3 boys right there on the bottom, 3 boys. You had the oldest is Brad. He's the one that's furthest on the right there. All right. Then you had Randy, who is on the left right there next to the office assistant. Okay, well, and then you have in the middle Mark. All right, Mark was the youngest. Guess what Brad and Randy's job was the entire showing of this show? Anybody want to take a guess? Yeah? No, the kids. All right, what were the kids? What did they do the whole show, Tyler? They picked on Mark. He was the youngest. How many of you are the youngest sibling? Like you're the youngest sibling? Did your older siblings ever pick on you? Yeah? No? Not really? Yeah? I mean, yeah? So that's what's happening. Mark was that younger sibling. Mark was the one that, Brad and Randy always set up. And, every single time they were trying to get him to like do something really, really dumb, or they were trying to get, he was always the favorite. So he was the one that they would say yes to all the time. Y'all know I talked about favorites last week, right? And so Mark was the one they would try to use to get approved to do something. And so, but the whole time they were picking on him and using Mark, and Mark just wanted to be accepted by his older brothers. And so this whole show, I mean, it was one of the shows that, like, I wanted to make sure I watched. I know it's not like today. Today, if you want to watch a whole series of shows, you just go to Netflix or Disney Plus, and you can binge watch it. All right. Back in my day, there wasn't binge watching because the internet wasn't as prevalent. Okay, we had to watch shows when they came out on TV. If we wanted to record them, we put in a VHS. Okay, yes, I'm that old. All right, and so a VHS tape. Anybody ever seen one of those? It's about this big, and it goes into a VCR. They don't even make. This is before CDs and DVDs. All right, and if you want to record the show, you had to put one of those in and hit record, and it recorded, and then you had to rewind it and watch it all at once. But typically, you would watch a show when it would come out. Okay, and so a lot of these shows came out Friday nights, prime time, about 8 o'clock on Friday nights. I can't remember when Home Improvement aired, but I think it was something like that. And it was a show. So if you wanted to see it, you were there every single week watching the show. And that's the way this show was for me. I wanted to see this show, and I watched it. It was funny. It was hilarious. I must have related real well to it. However, I have two younger sisters. And so it was an interesting, fun show that I would watch. But it always had conflict. Every single show about families have conflict. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Conflict in families. Not getting along. Somebody, favoritism. When you think of your family and you think of conflict, who in your family do you have the most conflict with? Interesting. I just want you to think about that because I really don't want those answers out loud, okay? All right? And but who do you have conflict with? Every single one of us have somebody in our family that we have conflict with. Like that we're constantly, seems like we're arguing with or fighting or beating up or, getting beat by, stuff like that. It's those people that we have conflict with. And you're like, yeah, they're in my family, but I don't even know if they really love me. You know what I mean? And we all come from different families, right? We come from different kinds. Some of you come from, quote, the perfect family, father, mother, couple siblings, all that stuff. Y'all get along, sit at the table together, and, it's always great. And, there's never any problems. If that's you, you're awesome. That's amazing. You're lucky. All right, then some of us, we come from broken homes. Maybe parents didn't, have struggled in the past, different things. Maybe you divide up between two different homes. Your family looks a lot different than the other home. Some of you are like, I'm not even sure who my parents completely are, or so we have tons of families represented in the middle school ministry here. And each one of our families, if there's one thing that we can learn from our families, is that all family has conflict. All family has conflict. And what I want to talk to you today, the story in the scripture that we're going to look at today, we're going to look at a family that has conflict, and we would think that there's so much conflict in this family that God could never use anyone from that family. But what we'll also notice in this story is even though there is a ton of conflict and there's a ton of stuff that you're like, there's no way God could use these people, God ends up using them. And that's what I want you to look at. So we're going to go back to the Old Testament, all right? Y'all know the Old Testament? Y'all follow me? There's two parts of the Bible. There's New Testament, Old Testament. We've talked about this already. Old Testament was before Jesus Christ. New Testament is Jesus Christ and beyond, all right? So old, new, okay? You got it? All right, so back in the Old Testament, not only back in the Old Testament, but way back into the Old Testament, early on in the Old Testament, there was a guy named Abraham, all right? Abraham, has songs written about him and all that kind of stuff, and some of you might sing. But Abraham was considered the father of Israel, okay? But there was a problem. Most of Abraham's life, he was not able to have kids. And there's all type of conflict and all types of crazy stuff. If you want to read that story, you can go back, but that's not the story we're going to look at today. But Abraham ended up having a kid. His name was Isaac, all right? Isaac was the kid that Abraham was going to have be the father of Israel for, okay? And so then you have Isaac, and then we're going to look at Isaac's kids a little bit, all right? Isaac had Jacob and Esau. Esau was the older brother, and then there was Jacob, okay? These were pretty typical brothers. They were not the same, though. They had different goals in mind. Esau was an outdoorsman, all right? He was a guy that would go out, and he would kill the animals and make a harvest and prepare a meal, and he was kind of a, rough-looking guy, all right? Esau was the redneck in the family, all right? And then you had the city boy of Jacob. He was the person, he was basically the mom's favorite, and Esau was the dad's favorite, all right? So y'all relating with these two guys with me a little bit? Like, they were completely different. I bet the battles were probably pretty tough. I bet Esau whooped up on Jacob a lot. I mean, I bet there was some serious fighting going along in this family. And the reason I think that is because we'll see in the story that these two guys pretty much hated each other. Back in that day, and it was culture for the father to pass all of his inheritance, everything that he had worked for, down to his oldest son. His oldest son would get all of that, okay? Everything, all of his blessing is what it was called. All right, who was the oldest son? Esau. Esau was the oldest son. So Esau was in line to get all of his father's inheritance, all of his father's blessing. And when his father was of age, okay, he was old, and he said, it was in the story, he doesn't have very good, eyesight. He's actually bed-stricken, so he's probably getting close to his death here. And so it's about the time that he is supposed to bless his son through a ceremony, bless his son, and give him his inheritance. And everything, it wouldn't go to his wife, it wouldn't go to anybody else. Everything would be Esau's. Now, Jacob didn't like that. Jacob he didn't like the fact that his brother was going to get everything. All right? His mom did not like that because, again, who was his mom's favorite? Who was Jacob and Esau's? Who was his mom's favorite? Isn't that how I say it? Something like that. Who was the favorite? Huh? Jacob. Jacob was the mom's favorite, okay? All right, so Jacob was the mom's favorite. So Jacob and his mom kind of came together and made this, they kind of decided, here's what we're going to do. The mom wanted Jacob to get the birthright, to get the inheritance, and to get everything. And because he was her favorite, she set it all up. Isaac had told Esau to go out into the field, kill an animal, make a soup with that animal, serve it to him, and he would bless him at that time. And so Jacob and his mom, while Esau was out killing an animal, trying to find something, hunting, taking care of that, they, prepared a meal instead, okay? And then you see they even kind of disguised Jacob to be like Esau. I guess Esau had very hairy arms, and very hairy guy, because it says they put basically hair onto his arms so that when Isaac would feel his arms of Jacob, he would know that was Esau. And so I'm thinking that's pretty hairy if they got to put something on the arms. Just kind of imagine. So they go in, and Jacob pretends to be Esau to get the blessing, and it works. He gets the blessing. He receives the blessing. So now Jacob has been blessed, and once he's been blessed, that the inheritance all goes to him. It did not matter at that point of what Esau had to do, and that's where we're going to pick up in our story. All right, so let's look at this, and right here, when Esau heard his father's words, he burst out with a loud and bitter cry, because Esau shows up a little bit later and is like, hey, I'm here to receive my blessing, and Isaac tells him that he's already given the blessing to it. But that's when you see here, when Esau heard his father's words, being told that he had already given him his blessing, he burst out with a loud and bitter cry and said to his father, bless me too, my father. But he said, your brother came deceitfully and took your blessing. Your brother deceived me, and your brother lied to me and took the blessing. And I guess, from that culture, I don't really understand it all, but once it happened, that was it. So his brother stole the inheritance of everything from him. Let's keep going. Esau said, isn't he rightly named Jacob? This is the second time he's taken advantage of me. You can go back and look at all that. He took my birthright, and now he's taken my blessing. Then he asked, haven't you reserved any blessing for me? He's like, come on, isn't there something that I would get out of this? Is there something from this? And of course, there's not, because once it's all been finalized, it's finalized. And could you imagine the next time that Jacob and Esau met up with each other? Could you imagine the hate toward each other at that time? Man, it would be crazy, right? Like, you think about it. If you set your brother or sister up and they took the fall for something that you did, how would that affect your relationship with them? What would happen? Would there be some chaos in the house? Yeah, for sure. There would be some chaos there, right? So, you see this. All right, so let's go to Genesis 27. And Isaac answered Esau, I have made him lord over you and have made all of his relatives his servant, and I have sustained him with grain and new wine. So what can I possibly do for you, my son? Esau said to his father, do you have only one blessing, my father? Bless me too, my father. Then Esau wept aloud, okay? And so you just see it continue going on. This was a huge deal. Like, this was a big deal because remember, Abraham had been promised to be the father of all the nations, and then it went to Isaac, and now it's supposed to go to Esau, but the blessing doesn't go to Esau, it goes to Jacob. So now it's Jacob being part of this family line of setting up the entire nation of Israel. And God decides, you know what? I'm still going to use Isaac's blessing, and he blesses Jacob, and he blesses him with the inheritance and all of this. And now we see God from this time on, after this crazy story happens and all this conflict and everything that happens in the family, God takes over and he starts to use it. So much so that even in the New Testament, in the book of Hebrews, they talk about this. In the book of Hebrews, this is the New Testament, okay? It says, by faith, Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau in regard to their future. So it even refers back to this story in the New Testament, because God has taken this situation that seems like it was completely unusable, a family that had some serious problems, and he used it. Each and every one of us in this room have a family, and our families have problems. Each and every one of us come from some type of background that we don't like. Something in our past that we're kind of, we're not sure about, that kind of holds us back. And some of us take and we use that stuff that's happened to us in the past, and we say, you know what? I'm not going to do anything for God because there's no way God could use somebody like me from the family that I come from. And I want to go ahead and tell you, that's not true. God can use you exactly how you are. It doesn't matter what kind of family you come from. It doesn't matter what's happened in the past. He's ready to use you. It's by faith. It's your faith in him. We talked about that last week. It's not your family's faith. It's your faith. And God can use you. So here's our bottom line for today. Here's the thing I want you to get from this. Your family doesn't have to be perfect for God to use it. Your family does not have to be perfect for God to use it. So how do you view your family? What's your family like? You say, oh, it's all frustrating, it's highly stressful, and all this kind of stuff. Then I want you to ask your question, God, how can you use my family and me for your cause, for you, to accomplish something, to share the gospel, because that's what we're all about. Each and every one of us have been commissioned. Our job is to go out and share the gospel. Guess what? If you come from a family that has divorced parents, you automatically know that every single other person that might have a divorced parent, you have that connection to, but you have that thing in common. You would know how to talk to those people. If you come from a situation where there's been abuse in your family, guess what? There's other people your age that have gone through abuse. And you could have an impact on their lives. Every single one of us have a story. And then there are other people that's going to come into your life that have a similar story that you get a chance to share your story with. And that's what we're all about, is sharing our story. Not changing it so that we can be somebody different, using the story that God has set before us and to share it. So I want to encourage you to do that. Think about that. Are you a Christian? Are you sharing your story? That's what we're talking about in this series. We're going to continue it next week. And thank you so much for paying attention to me. Let's pray. Dear God, thank you so much for this group here today. Thank you for letting us come into here to worship, to just get to have fun, to be challenged by you, God. God, I just pray that you will allow us to go out into this week being an example of you. God, I just pray that we will look for those opportunities that, we can take our past and our family situation and we can use it to share your gospel. And God, I just pray for each student that they will be motivated and charged to do whatever it takes to follow you. In your name I pray. Amen.